Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Let's go, friends. We're back with another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. It's showtime again, and before we get to the show, I just want to give you, a usual single reminder about something that you can do. It's always about sharing the podcast, following the podcast, and when you have 11 seconds, writing a quick 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those are things that really help us as we grow. You've already helped us grow substantially. I appreciate you. This week, we have Catie Lawrence, who balances investing and her business as an agent. But what it's all focused on is happiness. The name of her company is Happy Homes, and you're going to find out how she's gone through real estate investing with happiness in mind. Let's get to it. This is episode 113 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Catie Lawrence. Catie is an agent, investor, Airbnb superhost, a fix and flipper, and a financial freedom advocate. She's basically been all over real estate since she left her W-2. Catie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Jonathan, for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I've been following you on social and seeing all the good stuff. It just seems like you love real estate, like I love real estate. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yes. I love it so much I quit my W-2. So that's how much I like it.
Yeah. Well, how did you know that it was time to quit your W-2 as it relates to real estate?
Geez. Yeah, great question, because I think it sounds a lot sexier. Like I talked to so many people who said, I want to just quit and just do real estate. I'm like, yes, in theory, that sounds lovely, but not as easy. So I knew, because I was on my 11th boss in 9 years. Was at a great company, was a high earner. I just wasn't loving it anymore. So about 2 years prior to quitting, I kind of knew, wasn't really getting along with my new boss. Do I quit now? No, I'm a financial freedom advocate. So I needed to save a little bit, plan for this. So it basically took me 2 years once I realized that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to pursue real estate. So it took me about 2 years to save aggressively. I got my agent license. There was a plan. So I am a risk averse person, even though it doesn't sound like I am. So if people are just telling you to just go for it, I don't know. Maybe have a little bit of a plan.
Yeah, I love that, though. I always call that runway. I mean, if you can decide, hey, I want to do this in 2 years. And then, like you said, you can more aggressively save on purpose, knowing that you want to put it into properties or put it into marketing for a new business. And you kind of know, then you can dial down what you're doing at work the efficient hours, but start to build a business. I think a lot of people who are either in the military when they're deployed, they get into this too. They don't have as much time, but they start planning for when they get home. I think it's great advice to people, especially just don't quit your job now. Make the money. You need money to invest. You're not getting it from being a wholesaler.
Absolutely. And you are less bankable. This was something I realized.
Great point.
It's about 2 years since I've been out of the W-2 world. And although on paper it looks great, that steady income, I mean, I have cash flow from rentals, but you are bankable when you have a W-2. So really squeeze the heck out of that. I mean, that would be my advice for anybody.
Yeah, I realized that quickly after I always had good residual properties and income and bank accounts, but I stopped working for the government more than 10 years ago. And then I started doing my own thing. I had galleries, and then I was into real estate. And I remember going in and I was just like completely invaluable for a regular mortgage,
Yeah,
because I just didn't have a regular job. And you find out real quickly, like, okay, this is a little bit different. You have to look at different type of loan portals. So
absolutely.
growing up, I know your stepdad had a bunch of properties. When was the first time as an adult where you thought real estate, like, how did you know that that was going to be
Yeah.
the thing to get you out of the 9 to 5?
I didn't. So back in 2008, I bought my first townhouse. I liked the idea of having somebody else help me with the mortgage. So
Yeah.
had a roommate. That was the OG of house hacking. The kids are calling it
Yeah.
house hacking these days. Had a roommate. So then, my husband at the time was my boyfriend. He moved in. I still had a extra room. So I started renting a room in the house via Airbnb. And this was in 2012. So like OG,
Yeah.
I mean, 2008 is when Airbnb started. So started doing that. And then we planned to move to Colorado and kind of a accidental landlord. This is a great property. I think we could hold on to it. My husband's a contractor, so he knew people in the area
Yeah.
if there was something
Yeah.
wrong. So I think a lot of people get into being a landlord or real estate kind of accidentally, like, hey, we're just going to keep this property because we're moving. I
Yeah.
actually help clients do that. So that's really how I got into it.
Yeah, I love the term accidental landlord because I found that so many people don't think of themselves as in real estate, even when they have multiple. They're like, well, I own my personal home and then I have a couple rentals, but I'm not an investor. And I'm like,
You are.
what do you mean?
And you need to be running it like a business. And that took me
Exactly.
a little bit to realize too. So
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess you don't realize that it is a business until you want to turn it into a business. But if we could help people realize, hey, one rental property is a business. And the more, like you said, that you turn it that way and think, how can you maximize this instead of just, hey, I really like these tenants. Let's just let them do whatever they want to the property for a while. I'm not going to upgrade it. Old school landlord is just like, collect the rent, not fix the property. So when you guys left, that just became the first rental. And then how did you find it being a landlord away for the first time? Not on site anymore with a roommate.
Absolutely. It was actually easier than I thought.
Yeah.
We had a network because we lived in the area. Everything can be done online. If there's a fix, we call the handy person that we've been working with. If an appliance goes out, you order it from Lowe's.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds overwhelming, but it was pretty easy. And again, because we had lived in the area, we just knew people, and turnover was really the biggest challenge. So I had to pay a property management company who was actually my mother-in-law, which was very nice, but I had to pay her to help with turnover. So turnover is really the biggest thing. And that was pretty easy because we had a network.
Yeah, I feel like people overcomplicate being a landlord. I have a lot of first-time investors, you probably do as well, who say, well, I'm going to hire property management, and you live 11 minutes away. Why are you hiring property management? So we try to train everybody to learn how to do it themselves, because if you pick a good tenant, you're not going to hear from them.
100%.
If your place is in good shape,
100%.
You've done all of the maintenance. Yeah, good tenant. Your furnace and hot water heater are new. All the appliances are new. Why are you going to hear from anyone? You may hear from them if they want to get a cat or something, but other than that, you're pretty good.
Absolutely. If you set up the systems and it just becomes kind of on autopilot, and annually make sure you're doing the things. Send them air filters, send the, HVAC guy in, and just automate it all. It doesn't have to be complicated if you just like plan for it and be proactive about it.
That's a great reminder, though, that just because they're not going to call doesn't mean that you shouldn't be calling and doing your, quarterly maintenance on the property because you don't want to put them in a worse spot. Yeah. Right. And I always say they're caretakers of the asset for you. It's their
100%.
home for the time being, but they can mess it up or keep it really nice. And the more you pay attention to them and make sure that they're okay, the better you're controlling your own asset as well.
No, absolutely. I think just being, again, just proactively set a reminder on your Google Calendar, send them air filters, remind them to change them. I mean, these are very, very easy things that can be very expensive if you don't do them.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you guys moved, you have the first one. When did you decide we need to just start buying properties and doing this all the time?
Yeah. So we moved here again. My husband's a contractor, so he had to basically restart his business. He got our house. So we lived in the home we live in currently. And we lived in every room. So that was fun.
I've done that. You bring the fridge from room to room. Yeah, it's fun.
Especially with little doggies, like their paw. Yeah. Everything was just dirty all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Dust prints everywhere. Yeah,
dust prints everywhere. So he zipped up our house and then he started working for an investor as her main contractor. This was a great relationship, but we started realizing pretty quickly, wow, you have the skill, the money, and finding a deal. It's not super easy, but that's kind of the easier part of this.
Yeah.
So I said, he was like, why don't we start doing this for ourselves? So in 2015, we moved to Denver at the end of 2013. 2015, we started our business and we purchased a property 2 doors down from us because we don't like a commute, We really want to be close to our work.
Yeah.
So we wrote a note to a tenant who was moving out saying, let us know if the property's for sale. It needed a lot of work. And we ended up buying our first property off market with one note. Note to everyone, that does not happen. That it takes a long time to find off market deals. But it can.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be surprised, though, if I go back over the last year, episode 113, 112 guests, there's actually a lot of people who successfully did their own type of marketing, or it was just because of relationships that they had in the beginning where they just kind of walked into it. But it was because you were focused on it. If you weren't out looking for it, it wasn't just going to show up on your doorstep. But you wrote the letter at the right time, found the right person, and there it goes. And what kind of a reno was that? I mean, with your husband as a contractor and your knowledge growing, these things become a little bit easier.
Absolutely. And what made it even better was it was the same model of house as ours. So we didn't do as much as we did to ours. I mean, we removed all of the walls and raised the roof, but we kind of knew what we were getting into. So both bathrooms, kitchen. I mean, it wasn't a full gut, but half of a gut, and and then new flooring and carpeting. So having the same footprint as our house kind of helped. And again, we bought it for a great price, and we were able to sell it for a huge profit. The margins in Denver are not as good now just because prices are so stinking expensive. But back then, oh my goodness. Yeah, New Jersey, right? I mean.
Yeah. As we all profited from doing well on flips, then the bottom prices started to go up. And now the things that were 300 to flip are 400. So the margins don't make sense for me. It's probably the same for you. So you have to dig a little bit harder for deals, but it's still fun.
Absolutely. And because Mike does what he does, I mean, talk about sleeping with the enemy, Like I was marry a contractor, guys. Just do it, If take one for the team.
You're at cost labor, though. I mean, and I think that's what's important. You have to understand that, like, you can do the labor at cost because you're also the owner. So it's just an enormous time and maintenance savings without hiring someone who's then hiring subs. You have full control, and I know that commute 2 doors was a lot for you, but it also shows that buying close to you is really going to help you if you're going to do a renovation, because you're just, say you're 30 minutes away, you're not going to go every day. I don't care what anybody thinks. If it's next door, you can check up on it whenever you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. We actually, I think the next deal we did was about 30 minutes away, and Mike was there every day because it was ours and he was the contractor.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help him. I couldn't be there every day because I was still working a W-2 at the time. So it was a lot. It was a lot for him to have it just, in Denver traffic and all the things. So the commute, helps. And knowing your neighborhood. I mean, we wouldn't have written that note to somebody, a mile or two away, potentially. We kind of knew what was going on in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's important. I've been saying for a long time that real estate is decidedly local. The national news has turned it into something else, as if it matters in Washington State, what they're doing in Washington, D.C. They're not related. But the more you know your local market, the better investor you can be. Do you agree with that based on your experience?
Oh, absolutely. It's hyper local. I mean, as an agent as well, just going from one neighborhood to 2 miles down the street, it changes drastically. So yeah, understanding where you're investing from, just a locality I think is just huge.
Yeah. So have you guys stayed only investing nearby, or have you branched out now?
So no, we pretty much invest nearby. We own 5 homes and one is right outside of Philadelphia because that's where we originally
Yeah, that's
came
the
from.
OG.
That's
Yeah.
the OG, yes. And then we did all of our flips were in Denver or the Denver proper. And then, yeah, our rentals, our long-term rentals, except for the one in Philadelphia, are all in Arvada, which is where we live.
Yeah. I mean, where I am, I can go from county to county, but I feel like you get better and better if you stay within the same town because the same municipal personnel are there every time. You know who you're going to get to do the plumbing
Absolutely.
inspection. And that is a very underknown part of house flipping. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. My husband said that because we did do a flip in Denver. It was very close to us, but just like right on the cusp of Denver. And he said, oh my goodness, that flip was the longest flip we've ever done
Yeah.
because Denver just took so long to get the permits and just everything took so much longer. And because we know Arvada so well and it's a smaller, municipality, things just roll. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Where have the rest of the deals that you found come? I'm being licensed. I find a lot of my deals on the market just because I'm always looking at the MLS for what's on, more than 90 days. Is that where you're finding most of your deals?
So we have bought wholesale, either wholesale or off market because we knew someone. So two of our flips one of them was our neighbor. And then the last one that we did 2 years ago has turned into like a midterm rental, but we got that from somebody my husband worked on at a commercial job that he did for a buddy. So through networking and then through wholesale. So because we are a small shop, it's just my husband and I, we usually do 1 to 2 a year, which is not a lot, but because we haven't over leveraged, we were able to buy cash and then either refinance out of them or sell them and then go do a bigger deal. So we've bought wholesale.
I think it's important, though, to know. I mean, if you just look at the social media aspect of real estate investing, everybody's talking about all the thousands of doors they own. But most of us, I don't want to do, I'm just not a flipping company. So I don't want to do 20 at a time. I do one at a time. I'll do, my biggest year, I'll do 3 or 4 flips. And that's
is a
plenty
lot
for me. Yeah.
That's
I'm
a lot.
good. Yeah. And I look for big margins. I'm trying to make between 150 and 200 on a flip, but I'll never do a flip for not making 100. It's not worth my time and trouble. But I think it's an important note to people out there who want to flip that you don't have to turn into someone who's doing, 10 with a bunch of crews. That's a lot of headaches along the way and a lot of things that can break. So how have you found the steady growth of a portfolio and then figuring out which ones you should sell and which ones you should keep for short-term or mid-term rental, like you said before?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Again, we've grown very small. We started flipping. I was again working a W-2, so had that income coming in to help fund, and I was bankable. So if we needed to refinance, so very, very slowly. So we had right before COVID struck, we had a flip that went under contract and then they got cold feet because the world basically shut down. So we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So we ended up holding on to it. It's a great property. We ended up burring it basically. We were going to flip it, but exit strategy. So we burred it and refinanced and got a stupid low rate. So we kept that. And then we had all of this capital and we're like, what do we do with it? So we bought a turnkey property just to kind of make some of our capital work for us. Safe.
Yeah.
So we were able to buy that cash and then just kind of that way, very slowly. The deal that just came up, the last flip that we did that turned into a midterm rental, kind of same thing. We bought it cash. We're going to refinance out of it, but we didn't really need to. It was kind of like, oh, are we going to buy more properties? Currently we're at a point where we need capital. I don't know if I want to borrow money right now.
Yeah.
And that's just me personally. I know a lot of investors who are doing it. I think if that works for you, that's amazing. You should totally do it. But to your point earlier of lifestyle, I want to have very little leverage or very little like debt. So we're at a good place right now. So again, a lot of our capital is tied up in homes, which is fine. Our rentals are doing well. They're cash flowing. So it was just a very slow, you buy one, you hold on to it. Okay. Next year you buy one. Last year we didn't buy any. We traveled a lot.
Yeah. I didn't buy any. I finished a flip last year, but I didn't buy anything last year because there was nothing. The deals were non-existent. But I think that's important too. Everybody operates at their own speed. I was a cash investor until my 30s, and then I look at leverage. I use it sometimes. Sometimes I'll use modified lines of credit that I have based on assets. But I'm never. I'm not trying to leverage myself, and that's just my personal thing. Like you, I don't want to have 50 properties all leveraged because I just feel like that can all crash down at some point.
Absolutely. And without the W-2, I just, again, a little risk averse. We did just pull a HELOC. We have not utilized it, but I think the power of other lines of, like you're saying, other lines of credit, other creative financing. So if something does pop up, we'll have the money to jump on it. I think being opportunity focused instead of sometimes I can get FOMO following all these investors who are like, I just bought another one. I was like, well, we're not buying any. What are we doing?
Yeah.
But don't have FOMO, people. Do your own thing.
I think people forget about people think of HELOCs just as only the little bit that you have as a second mortgage. But if you're a cash buyer, then you can pull the HELOC for a much bigger amount and you don't have to use it.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what you do the same thing. You pull it so you have it. And then when you want to activate it, you can, and it's sitting there and you don't have to be requalified or anything. So if you can do it, your cash isn't going to waste if you have it in a house. You can just use a HELOC at a much lower percentage. I mean, not as low as it used to be, which used to be really awesome. But
gosh, I know.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's Jonathan. This is a brief interlude from the episode so I can talk to you about the fact that my real estate team, the on-market version, we just changed brokerages. So now we're at Real, which is Real Broker, LLC, and it is a progressive brokerage. We're super excited to be there. And one thing about what we do is we are an on-market, investor-friendly real estate team. So you're probably here because you're interested in real estate investing or you're an experienced real estate investor. We work with hundreds of real estate investors because we are focused on understanding investor dynamics. 99% of real estate agents don't understand what investors are looking for. We do. It's my background, and I bring it to my team every single day. So if you are looking for investor assistance in the state of New Jersey, we have you covered. Parts of New York, good. A little bit of a part of Nevada, all good. Also, if you don't know an investor-friendly agent in your area and you need help, just reach out to us. We will connect you. We have investor-friendly friends who are agents all over the country. Let's get back to the show. And so how did you start getting into meetups and then growing your sphere as an investor? Because I think that's what everybody who, you smartly had the runway to get into it, but how have you gone through that, which has led to, creating a women's group, getting investors together? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So through my brokerage, they assign you a mentor. So I had actually here in Denver, Bigger Pockets is here, which I actually didn't know until I started getting in, investor heavy. Hello, I'm an idiot. But reached out to him prior to me joining my brokerage. It seemed like he was doing this kind of same things we were doing. Yeah. So I was like, hey, can we get together to I'll buy you a beer. Like, I understand time is money. You like beer. I like beer. So let's get together. And sometimes it's just reaching out, like asking the question, be specific. Because I have had people reach out to me like, hey, can we grab coffee? I'm like, sure. But like, do you have specific questions? Maybe this can just be a phone call. Like I let him know, these are the things I want to know about. Can we get together? So we knew I was serious and specific. So long story short, he heads up a pretty big meetup here in Denver. And then I've just started started kind of tagging along with him. And then he asked me to co-host the women's group. That's kind of a group of this main group. So it's just through time. And I think not being intimidated by people who are doing bigger things than you.
Yeah.
Most people are doing bigger things than me because we're pretty small.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people though we have a lot of value to bring to the table too. And I've done a lot of different things. So it's just, don't be intimidated to get out there and ask the questions. So that's really how I got into investing meetups, because there's a lot of them and not all of them are created equal. I mean, you could go to a meetup every
I agree.
5 hours if you really wanted to. So find the people that you really connect with and go consistently. So that's what I did. I told myself a goal is to like at least commit to like once a month going to this one that I like.
I agree. I put that on people's schedule to say like you should be going to one a month at least. And you want to look for the ones where it's limited pitch and limited speeches. Like we have ours is tomorrow while we're recording on a Tuesday. So it's on Wednesdays, first Wednesday of every month, once a month. And there's no pitch. I don't do a talk. I don't do a presentation. I can do that on a webinar. It's just me doing something I heard when I was at Bigger Pockets conference in October. I watched a presentation by Pace, and Pace was saying when he's at his meetups, he's just trying to figure out what do you want, what do you need, and then he's connecting people. And I'm trying to use that principle. I was always connecting people, but now I really think like, okay, well, you're in that area. You two need to talk, and I'm really the conduit for that. Also because I'm an introvert and talking to everybody is just a lot. So I'd rather make them talk to each other.
It is a lot. That's funny that you're an introvert and you have a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great. I just, sit behind this mic in my office in my socks and sweatpants. No problem. Yeah. But I mean, just like you were saying about meetups, for me, podcasts, before I had my own, I was listening to Bigger Pockets and listening to other ones. And it was just, I had already been in it for 30 years and I was still learning new stuff because I could take it with me in the car. I'm on an hour drive each way. Why wouldn't I be listening to podcasts? I like music, but I can listen to it at night when I'm relaxing. I want to learn stuff on the go. How did you add that stuff in books, podcasts? And like you said, you didn't even realize Bigger Pockets was in the area. Now you're like, wow, all these people are here.
Like, oh my gosh, it's right down. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I'm on the financial independence train, me and a group of girlfriends started a financial group. It's basically once a month. I think there's 5 of us, and it's called the Money Minded Mavens. And we get together and we all kind of have the same mindset of we really want to educate ourselves in investing. That goes from real estate to 401ks to life insurance to just insurance in general. Very variable topics. So we basically started that, I think like 5 years ago now. And
awesome.
That really, really projected me into this stuff is all out there. I mean, we are in a time when technology is really a friend of ours, when information, is at stake and you need to find something. I mean, everything is figure outable. That's a Marie Forleo quote. But so we, again, sharing podcasts, sharing books, and this month we'll talk about index funds. What are the expense ratios? What is this? What is that? Because you hear a lot like, oh, it's just so overwhelming. Well, how do you eat a whale one bite at a time? So that group actually really helped just kind of push the boundaries of, saving and investing. And in the background, Mike and I were kind of already doing the real estate. So just started kind of introducing that as well to the women, and several of them now have bought real estate as well. So it's just, it's getting together with like-minded people talking about things. I mean, if you have a question, ask. People like to talk about themselves. So
always,
as you can see, I haven't shut up.
Yeah.
But ask
That's
the question.
What you're here for.
Yeah. Ask the question. So I think that group really helped propel me.
Yeah, I think the collective mindset of masterminds is a huge, huge advantage for people who are in them. It really takes the confidence level from, I think I can do this, to wait, everybody's doing this. I don't have FOMO when they're in my group. I just want, they can do it, so I can do it too. It's different 100%. Than watching someone on social media. You have 5 accounts you like to follow. They just look like they're doing it better. It's super shiny. And then you go to a meetup and your friends are all in shorts, having a beer, and you're like, wait, that's what I like to do. Like you said before, I think that kind of matching model of created masterminds that aren't these big groups that cost a lot of money are really, really empowering for everybody. And you've seen it, right? You've seen it close up for people who come in, for one reason, and then all of a sudden now they have a fourplex and it's churning income, and they didn't realize they could do that.
Absolutely. I think it's just getting over the hurdle of, I don't know how to do it. Oh, but you've done it. Oh, and this is how you do it? Oh, great. Okay. So just exchanging knowledge and making sure that you're asking the questions. Don't ever be afraid to ask. I'm not a bashful person.
I can tell, but that's good. I mean, that helps a lot of people who are, I'm forthright. I can speak. I'm just introverted, which I'd rather stand in the corner, but I don't have to. But I think it's important to have people there as your friends, just like we were saying in the mastermind, who maybe they will say the question that I kind of want to ask, but they'll just blurt it out. Like, maybe that's you. You're just going to, like, hey, you said that to me. You don't want to ask. Sure, no problem. You raise your hand and then you ask the question. And then it's, it becomes easier. How have you, as you were growing into, real estate, and now you're someone who is available to go on podcasts, how are you getting through what's out there on social media and deciding for yourself? Now, what should I post? What should I look at? What's real and what's not? Because I think that's hard for a lot of newer investors.
Oh, it is. It is. I would say limit your time on social media. So I actually put a timer on. So when it gets to 30 minutes a day, it pops up to say, you've spent 30 minutes. And sometimes I'm like, okay, great. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I've already spent 30 minutes. Like, good Lord.
Yeah.
So I think limiting yourself, as well as like limit who you're following in the sphere. I'm all about following the gurus. I'm all about following people who have been there and done that. But make sure you're also following the real people too. I think people who are sharing what could potentially go wrong. I'm not saying doomsdayers, but I'm saying people who are sharing, oh my gosh, I have this flip and yikes, it did not go well. And this is why it didn't go well. And just, I think finding real people on social media is getting more apparent. So what I personally like to share is A, the real stuff, B, educational, see if I can provide value or something in my area that I think would be nice for other people to know, or humor. I'm very sarcastic. I'm from the East Coast, you know.
Yeah.
And so just my husband and I work together. We work on flips together. And sometimes that he's a contractor. He's definitely an introvert. And sometimes he's like, turn off the damn camera. So sometimes I make jokes about that. So I think if you're educating, if you're entertaining, if you're providing value, don't be shy about posting on social media, because everybody started somewhere, right?
Yeah, and you never know what one person can take away from it. I think also important of what you said is curating who you follow. I do think it's important to follow the larger accounts in the beginning, but once they become repetitive and you're bored and you've seen it, just unfollow them. No one knows. I mean, who cares? You sometimes need that to kind of get into the windmill, but then you find better fits for yourself. Say you don't want to do apartments and you're into land, then you're going to trend to follow more land flippers.
Absolutely.
And then you leave in a little bit of the content. But I've always found, as someone who's taught, 100 social media classes, the more that you curate your following, the more you can, barring the algorithm, curate your feed, which helps you be more connective on social media, which is why it was started. It's just turned into an algorithmic disaster. But if you limit it to these people, then you're commenting on things where you're going to make relationships on social media now, which a lot of us have. I mean, a lot of my podcast guests came from DMs. I knew of them or kind of knew them, but not enough to send them a text. And, this is just the way that it works now. You emailed me and I was like, oh, great. I can look this stuff up. Like you said, there's verification to look and then say, oh, great. Yeah, I think this is a good match. And I think you can do that with your social content and meetups, like we were saying before. Look up the meetup, are there people there who can you talk to someone who's been to the meetup? It's easy. If you do it on meetup.com or on Bigger Pockets, you can see who's already RSVP'd to past events and just send them a DM and say, how was it? Are there pitches? And you can find a lot like that. Like you said, investors in particular love to talk about themselves. We certainly do. I enjoy it, but they also love to help others. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's cool. Did you
so
find
cool.
though, if we go all the way back to your first property, this kind of accidental landlord thing,
Yeah.
it must have been interesting to start to transition to somebody who considered themselves an investor. At what point were you where you guys said, I think that we're like real estate investors now? Was it before or after you left the 9 to 5? Because I think people, like we were saying in the beginning, you really, if you own a house, you're an investor. I try to tell every single
100%.
family home buyer, it's the biggest investment you've ever made. How do you not think that you're an investor?
Absolutely. So I think it was probably after. I mean, while I was still living there and renting out a room in my house, I got the like ding, ding, ding. Wow, somebody's paying for my, grocery bill or like extra income. I can get extra income from somewhere where I'm living. What? Like that's a thing. So got a little taste of it. And then I think once we got that flip property 2 doors down from us, I think that was like, okay.
Yeah.
Mike probably had the thought that like, yeah, we're investing. Like, hello, like this is what I do for a living. But I was still in the W-2 world. I didn't think, it was just like, oh, this is a side gig that's making us a lot of money. Like, oh, pretty good.
Yeah, but even for Mike, it's a different transition because a lot of times contractors are so busy doing other people's jobs, and it's always like, well, look how much they just made, and I did all the work, and I just got my paycheck. And then when you start doing it yourself, you're like, okay, now I get it. Let's get on both sides of this here.
Absolutely, and I think what I loved about your podcast is you talk about like the lifestyle element of what we were doing because we wanted to remain small, because we didn't want to over leverage. We are skiers, we are mountain bikers, we are hikers, we have a truck camper. I mean, we wanted to curate a life around our work, not like work around our life. I think that is very important. Like, what kind of life do you want? Because sometimes you just create another job for yourself.
For sure. That goes back to what you said at the beginning of giving yourself the runway and planning it out. There's a lot of people who quit the 9 to 5 and then they get into the 8 to 8.
Sticky. 100%.
And then they're still not done. And they're not making 8 to 8 for free because you're not making any money trying to be a wholesaler. So I think those are really good points. And knowing what your long-term goal is, in a partnership or a family, like, are we, what financial freedom means something different to every person.
To
I know
everyone.
You find that out as an advocate. For some people, it's like, I just want to live content. And for other people, it's, I want $10 million in the bank. Both are good.
Great.
Whatever makes you feel the way that you feel financially free is what it is. And that definitely can be different for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the personal finance is personal, right? So I'm a very frugal person just by nature. Ask my husband. He's like, oh my gosh, you could like wring you out and a penny would drop but this was important to me because last year we basically only had rental income and we were able to do that and skied 50 times and traveled for 2.5 months. And yes, I was working with clients on the side, but just think about what you want long-term, right? And again, I won't get on that soapbox of financial freedom, but I love how you said it's different for everyone. Like, what is it to you?
I've just seen it because I think too many courses are out there telling you there's only one way to do it and one way to feel, and this is the amount that you need. And if you live in a small town in the Midwest, you don't need the amount of income that you need to live in New York City. So you may not need the amount of properties, or the way that you look at everything is different. And that's why real estate is local, because even real estate providers, from your husband, what you're going to charge in Colorado, it might not be the same as people charge in New York. You have to see what everybody's charging and why, and if they're undercharging or overcharging, especially when you come into a new area. And I think that's that's the whole thing about real estate is you can't just look. I love every Bigger Pockets book. I just always say when you read a book, if you read Jay Scott's book on flipping houses, just don't use the numbers as the absolute thing because it's going to change from market to market.
Absolutely.
Everything in there, you're going to plug into the spreadsheet the same way. You just can't say, what in Illinois is the same as Nebraska. It's just different.
Absolutely. Especially when you're looking at, like you said, material costs, cost of labor, and ARV. I mean, after repair value, it's like, that drastically different. So do the numbers locally for sure.
Yeah, that brings me to one thing. As you were saying that, it just kind of little light bulb went off in my head. I've never been a big fan of evaluating almost anything by square feet unless it's a condo
Yeah.
or an apartment, because just for the reason you said, first of all, construction costs are going up and down in different areas. The supply chain during the pandemic made things change. But it's just, I can't evaluate what is a good price per square foot on a flip because the basement could be different if you're in a basement area. Mold is something different. So everything isn't just an easy calculation to make it, work.
Absolutely. I think it's a little easier for us, which good or bad, because Mike could do the work. I feel like I didn't analyze as much as I should have in the beginning, because it's like, wow, we're saving $40,000 in contractor costs. Great. Get to work, honey. So it made the analyzation come a little bit later, which I think hindsight is, make sure you understand it. You don't need to death by analyzing, but understand your numbers. And that took a little bit just because I was kind of like, oh, he's got it, which he did. But
do you have a number that you're going for on flips? Like for me, for flips, I'm just looking at the cash that I'm going to make afterwards. Like to me, that has to be 6 digits, preferably 150 to 200 to get me interested in it. Do you have anything like that, or a percentage, or how are you guys looking at them?
Yeah. So typically we look at just profit of what like we're gonna gross basically.
Yeah.
That's as complicated as it's gotten. We go through like statements of work and do that before we agree to, buy a property to make sure that it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's usually what we go through. Just what's our profit going to be?
Yeah, you have the advantage of you actually can pay more than a general consumer or a hybrid flipper who doesn't have a crew, who just needs to go hire people because they're going to get overcharged. So their contracting costs are going to be way higher. So it may look like you're paying more than you should, but you know that you have your work on a downgrade because you own the company, and you guys know the numbers, and Mike knows this is who he has to do all of the work.
Absolutely. And because I'm an agent, that's why I got my license initially. Yeah. I mean, it ends up, obviously, clients, want your expertise and friends and referrals, which is lovely. I love real estate. So this is like why I did it. Yeah. But initially it's like, that's a huge cost too, that, 3% of the deal. Now you get that back, right? Because you're representing it. So that's
I love buying my own properties. I just like, I just got an extra $15,000. Like that to me, I just take it off of the price. I'll say, okay, the price was $550, but I got 10,000 in credits and a 15,000 commission. So it's $525 to me. And that's, I really advocate for most investors having their license, not for everyone. I don't say it for people who really want to wholesale full-time, because that's not a good match. But how valuable has the license been for you just to be able to get into properties, look at comps, all of those things as you're doing your own flips? Oh,
it's been huge. I got my license, and literally a month later, I had a client. I think like 4 months later, I bought a turnkey property. It just snowballed. I thought that I would just get it, again, to your point, comps, buying our properties, seeing what's out there, being able to sell. And it's been really good for us. And because I have different streams of income, I haven't just relied on oh my gosh, I need to find more clients, that grind of an agent. So
I've said that to a lot of investors. They say, I only want to get my license just for me. I'm like, well, what if your mom wants to buy a house? You want to let them go with John Smith. I mean, you can refer them to me, but why don't you do it? Your best friend, you want your best friend buying a duplex without you when you have 6 duplexes and you have a license? It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. No, I would say, even if you're an investor and that's why you got into it, tell people that you are also an agent and you can help with them, especially if they want to start investing. People want that expertise.
Yeah, when you go to meetups, a lot of times I just go look at properties with my friends. Some of us are licensed, some aren't. Like, wow, this is great. I mean, I have access. So I have 3 or 4 people sometimes who can buy a property in one viewing. And everyone's like, whoa, why would you show it to them all at once? Because it's not competitive. Maybe if they both like it, they can have a joust or something. But usually, one person's going to pay. I've had clients offer on the same property. I didn't tell them what anyone's offering.
Yeah.
One offered higher. That's just the way it is. I give them the same information to go. But to your point, the more investments that you do, the more proof that you have of your own concept, which makes you much more valuable to an investor than your regular agent who doesn't really know anything about investing.
Absolutely. And I've actually started helping clients who want to purchase another property and rent their property. I've helped them rent their own property because to your point earlier, you don't need to pay a property management company. If you make sure that all of the systems are great when you get in there, that everything is working properly, that the house is cleaned, which I help manage, all of the things, have a house manual, if an emergency happens, this is what you should do. Instead of calling me, call the plumber, and all of the things set up and vetting tenants.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've helped a lot of clients do that just because they're like, I don't want to hire a property management. I'm like, give me a flat fee and we're on our way. You don't need to hire.
We did all our stats for last year. I've had a big team, but we did 42 rentals last year, and 25 of those were rental listings. And that's just good use of your business. So that means 25 landlords trusted us. And most of the time, just because of the lead flow of rental listings, we usually end up getting both sides. They're all on the MLS, but you get 100 leads the first day. So you're just, combing through. And like you said, the most important is being that buffer to make sure that you're helping them vet for the right client, not to say against any clients, but say, hey, let's look at them, the whole package together. And is this a comfortable rental? Is this going to work? And we've been successful about doing that. And then every year, if the client leaves, we're just re-renting the same buildings now over and over. We already have everything set up. We know the scale, and it's a great way as an agent to do good business and keep those investor connections along the way.
Absolutely. It's just another way to A, show your expertise, and B, hey, do you want to buy another property?
Right.
Let me know. Right. I've talked to tenants about, oh, you're an agent? Oh, well, when we move out of here, it's just, again, it's just another natural lead.
It's the difference between commission breath agents who are everything's a transaction, or you saying why would you pay for property management? I'm going to teach you how to do it for yourself for free. That's what we do. We get them set up on a system, tell them what to do, tell them how to schedule their laundry days, and then they just save 10, 12%. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
100%. Yeah. Yes, this is why you want to be an investor, for an income stream. You don't want to pay that income to a property management team.
Right. So they're like, oh, it doesn't cash flow that well. I put it through the Bigger Pockets calculator. I'm like, let me see that. I'm like, why do you have property management on there? You live 3 blocks away. There, you just save 10%. Oh, look, now you're cash flowing.
Nailed it.
Yeah, look at that. Wow, that was so hard. Oh, awesome. This has been great talking to you. Where's the best place for people to get in touch with you? Is it at happyhomesltd.com?
Absolutely. You can go to my website. I'm also very active on Instagram at happyhomes_LTD.
Well, is it happy_homes LTD?
Yes, it is actually. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm looking at it right now because the underscore always throws people off. So you can usually find it. If you put in Happy Homes LTD, it will come up. You're just going to look for probably Catie's picture or something else that's a logo. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on. So glad that you emailed me. I look forward to staying connected, and look out for Catie in the Denver area. There's so many investors there. It's unbelievable. Thanks so much for your time.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. That was Catie Lawrence. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.